Thank you. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing today? How was the trip to Mandalay Bay? Everybody come from Venetian? Yeah?
Pretty long.
All right, we're going to start with a quick intro of the speakers. I'll start with myself. My name is Mazen Laban, and I head AWS IoT Solutions, part of the IT group at AWS.
Hello, I'm Arthur Wu, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer of Chevron Group. And I'm very pleased to be here and share the stories with you guys.
And I'm Craig Williams. I head up the Partner Solution Architects for IoT, as well as our Partner Solutions team.
Thank you. Before we start, by show of hands, how many of you here are hardware developers? Nobody, okay. Oh, one, okay, all right. And how many of you are software developers or developing software solutions? Okay, quite a bit. How many are system integrators? All right. There's no two prizes, only one prize. Sorry, Jen. All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to see, just pull the room real quick. So let's get started. Our agenda today is pretty packed. This is a technical session, so we're going to be focusing most of the session on the use case from Chevron, but also we're going to be doing a demo of some of the software that we're working on with our partner Thundersoft. So from the agenda, we're going to cover the value chain for building IoT solutions, and then we're going to dive into AWS vision for building IoT solutions. And then we're going to dive right into the use case with Chevron, and then how do you build the solutions with AWS? How do we support you as a software developer or a system integrator? And then we'll end with a Q&A, but before you leave, I do have a survey for you, and I would like to get some data for you about your pain points in building solution. So at the end of the deck, there is a QR code, so if you don't mind snapping that, and then provide us with your input. The link is quite self-explanatory. So, okay. So let's start with talking about the value chain of building IoT solutions. So builders, whether software developers, system integrators, or even to a certain extent hardware developers who are planning to build IoT solutions for their customers, today they have a number of starting points that they can start in building these solutions. And these starting points have come with different complexities, but also offer a different level of flexibility and scalability, depending where you start, right? So the first value or the first part that you can have access to is building blocks. You can get access to a number of building blocks. So as a system integrator or a software developer, you want to build an outcome for your customer. You have to integrate all the different hardware or different sensors, different cameras, different applications, different services, cloud services, in order to come up with that final solution. So building blocks, they have an advantage that you build everything from scratch. So as a result, it gives you the highest level of customization because you control everything in and out. So you build that final solution with that in mind. Okay. But that takes time. It costs a lot of money. And what ends up happening is that these types of solutions are not completely reusable because they were super custom. Building up from that, you have the purpose-built services. So purpose-built services are intended to solve a vertical type of problem or vertical type of solution. So purpose-built services are like fleet-wise, like site-wise. Those are purpose-built services. They allow you to get a leg up in building your solution because it allows you to focus your solution on that particular vertical. So by definition, it allows you to build that solution for that vertical, and it doesn't give you that flexibility or scalability to scale to other verticals if you wish to do so. So if your company is focused on more than one vertical, or would like to grow in more than one vertical, purpose-built services are limited in that fashion. Then we go up to modules. What are modules? Okay. These are software modules. So software modules can be made available by partners or by cloud providers. And these modules do integrate some of the IT and OT functions into packages. And these packages are intended to solve a certain function. So what that does is it lowers your overall effort to build an end solution, because you got these modules that actually have certain function. And Craig will cover some of these functions in a later slide in depth. At the end of this value chain, the top of this value chain is what it's called solutions, but also called turnkey solutions. Okay, what do turnkey solutions mean? Turnkey solutions mean that you have the IT and OT functionalities and features are pre-integrated. Okay, so what that does is it allows you to pick up this particular turnkey solution, and it's already pre-configured to connect the edge with the cloud and with the application in the middle. And with the turnkey solution, you're able to scale, and you're able to actually do your own configuration. Okay, so that's on the value chain. So let's talk about the convergence of IT and OT, and what are the challenges here. Okay. So with advancement in technology, in the digital technology, like AI and IoT, you have the ability now, or IT has an ability now to see and influence, to see and understand and influence the operation or the physical world. Okay, you're able to do that now, right? But still, the integration continue to be complicated. Why is it complicated? Because in any organization, both the IT and OT teams have distinct skill sets, right? They don't have the same skill set. So as a result, if you're asking them to create that layer or do that integration, it's not natural. Okay, hence the complication. So pivoting a little bit and looking at that complication in the IT and OT conversions, what are customers telling us are their pain points? Okay, they're telling us that their pain points is in order to build an end solution, they have to actually integrate multi-partner solutions or multi-partner software modules or multi-partner devices all into one solution, right? And then they have to customize it to their business logic. So if you can imagine from all these steps, now you have created a very bespoke solution, right? That is hard to learn from, but also hard to reuse, okay? Because it's by default, you spend so much effort coordinating multi-partners and building the solution more or less custom. So reusing that and learning from that is difficult. So with that, and as you know, at AWS and Amazon in general, we always work backward. So whatever we build, we always build it with customer input, with customer feedback, or customer use cases, as we will demonstrate later in the presentation here. So what customers are telling us, in building solutions, they want the least overhead possible. They want to be able to build something, to build their solution at lower cost, least overhead, and they want to be able to reuse what they rebuild, and they want to be able to have the flexibility to configure and scale these solutions. So if their scenarios change or their business need change, they have to be able to do so. Okay, so that's what customers are telling us. So let's bring it back to the problem statement here. So we talked about IoT solution, IoT turnkey solution, being the most effective in actually bringing the IT and OT features together. Well, indeed, that is our finding as well, that with a pre-integrated turnkey capabilities, the convergence of both silos within an organization is made possible. So let's dive a little bit into what is AWS's vision of building IoT solutions, and then how we're gonna go by doing that. So first, let's talk about the high-level goals. So our goals are to, one, we want to reduce that complexity, right? So we talked about modularizing. We will cover that in the next few slides, and explaining what does modularizing mean and what does it do for your solution. But essentially, reducing that complexity is the priority number one. And then solving for specific vertical challenges is another aspect of our goals in IoT, and specifically on my team. Because when we solve a specific vertical solution and work backward from a customer pain point, we are able to address the customer needs. And we want to make it easy for customers to get straight to their outcome. So when a customer comes to us and says, "Look, I'm looking to modernize my factory, right? But here is the business outcome that I'm trying to get to." This is how we're going to get our customer directly to that, rather than the building blocks approach. With that, I'll hand it over to Craig.
All right, thanks, Martin. I'll use this one. All right, so let's actually look at some of the components that are going to be available to you when you consider the full solution stack that we're talking about here today. So on the lower end of this, we've got our devices, we've got our gateways, the physical pieces of hardware that are going into our IoT solutions. And above that, we have our building block services from AWS, right? So this is our IoT services, analytics services, database services. If you've ever built anything on AWS, right, you know you have to piece all these bits and pieces together. So this is kind of the foundational aspect of building an actual solution. What we're doing now is giving you these additional service modules that go on top of the AWS services. So they're built on top of our native services. You can pick and choose which of these service modules you actually want to use inside of your solution. You can see we've got things like role-based access control for user management. We give you more capabilities around analytics by tying together different AWS services. We add additional functionality to the IoT services as well, so we make things like device management easier. And we do a lot of that by, one, connecting other AWS services together, but also providing a user interface that actually does this for you. And so you get access to kind of each of these service modules. And to get you started, we have templates, right? So for different verticals, you'll find that there are solution templates. If you were to pick a manufacturing one, for example, it's going to come with the code that you need to get started. And once you have that in place, you then build an application on top of that stack. So as a customer, you can find solutions that partners have already built and then take it and customize it. If you're an AWS partner and you want to build an application for one of these verticals, you get these accelerators, you get these service modules. It gets you 80, 90% of the way there, and then you build an application on top of that and make it available for your customers. And so with that, I'm going to have Arthur walk through his use case, building on top of the solution stack so far.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for Craig sharing about very nice and beautiful AWS vision for IoT solutions. Now it's my turn to share with you about Chevron stories and a Chevron use case with AWS and CenterSoft. So let's talk about Chevron first. Chevron is the company who has committed to build better tools and to create better world for many years. We focus on the handheld power tools. We have focused on the outdoor power equipment and also bench tools as well. We have world-class R&D capabilities. We also have manufacturing testing competencies, cross-border sales and marketing teams, and also we provide our customer with very high service agreement. So through all these competencies, we are able to provide our customer with very high-level solutions to meet and exceed our customer expectations. So in the last 30 years, Chevron has been created a lot of success stories. For example, we have sold our products in more than 30,000 stores in around 100 countries. And we already have 10,000 employees globally. And we have been pride ourselves as a top 10 player in the power tools and OP industry. So that's all about Chevron. But however, we still have to face a lot of challenges. I guess almost all companies has a lot of challenges. But for us, I guess one of the key challenges is how to speed up our product development process to have a higher operation efficiency and also to have a very quick response to the market. In the previous days, actually, we have to spend a lot of time to develop a new product. It's very time consuming, no matter from hardware and software testing, and also we have to, when we have to launch a new product, and also to release a new version, it's a lot of headache. So all these issues we are facing actually trigger us to think about how can we do the digital transformation. So these are the challenges and triggers driving for us to move forward. So I have to skip this slide. I will save the best for last for the advertising, okay? Okay. Let's talk about the use case first. Just as I said, we have to build up our use case, our business scenario to resolve our challenges, to have list all the key aspects. So one of the aspects, the first is we have to provide the better IoT product user experience. This is very important. For every consumer product company, we need to provide our customer with a better user experience. This is the key. And also, we have to enable our digital operation, across the value chain, not only just within the company, but also across the value chain externally with our partners, suppliers, dealers, all kinds of. And also, just I mentioned, we need to have a very strong capability in the global product management or development. It's not just develop one product in one region. So we have to have a standard product development process, but how to fit in the regional requirements. So this is also very important. And the last but not least is the product innovation. So every time when we try to launch the first version of the new product or first generation, it may take time. But the key is how can we use agile way to continuously improve our product and also to launch the market the second generation, third generation, and also we can receive all the feedback from our customers and do our modifications to meet their requirements. So these are all the basic things we are considered for complete business scenarios. Yeah, I would like to give you some detailed examples to illustrate how big challenges we are facing right now. The first one is flexibility and agility. So when we try to develop the IoT platform in the past, so it takes at least 9 months and a big team, maybe more than 30 plus team members to develop the complete IoT platform. But the even serious thing is it's not fully scalable. So when we try to launch a second generation product, so we have to use 3 months to build it. So this is very time consuming and costly. And all the modules and functionality are not fully reusable. So we have to maintain our 10 plus members and even like 6 months to enable our new IoT product. So this is another headache for us. And one more thing is when we launch the new IoT product, we have to do the ongoing maintenance. So we still have to recruit quite a lot of engineers, such as like 10, to support the user to using the advanced features to train and coach and to let the user know how to use that. So all these are quite big challenges for us to do the digital transformation, especially in the IoT area, what we are talking about. So after we switch to the new platform, we are able to provide value to our customer and also for us as well. So when we talk about flexibility and agility, so right now you can see that the new product solution can be done in 3 months, so which saves about more than 60% of efforts. And also it's quite scalable. So we reduce the time frame to 4 weeks to build a new application. So more than 70% of efforts has been saved. So another big move. And also a lot of modules can be reused, and which means we can roll out the similar functions just in 1 day. And more than 90% plus modules can be fully reused. So this is a huge improvement, I guess. And also, we reduce our ongoing support from 10 engineers to 3 engineers. So, and also the complexity has been reduced a lot, about 60%. So you can see that we switch from the old platform to new platform based on AWS, and it helps a lot. So this is the, I guess, the value we have already achieved. Oh, sorry. I need to go back to the very important slide. Yes. Okay. The stories I've shared with you is the past and the now. But we have to go back to the beginning of the story, why we do this. I just mentioned that we have a lot of challenges. But when we have challenges, we have do a lot of assessment to select who might be the proper partner, straight partner for us, can deliver the digital transformation for us to get along with this journey with us. So we have the several years of the assessment. And finally, we select two as our straight partner. So for AWS, the reason why, I guess, I still need to emphasize, right? So AWS has a very good global strategy, and also provide a very solid services, and also very solid the privacy, data protection stuff, and also very high level of agreement. So all these things integrate together will enable us, Chevron. We only need to consider about build applications, business applications to support a business, without considering other infrastructure or other stuff, because AWS can provide us all. And that's why we decided to introduce this technology of AWS. This is one thing. So another thing is, yes, we have a very good technology, but we still need to have someone to help us to implement and utilize the technology. And Sundersoft is a partner that help us to do so. They are very good, strong at the digital transformation service, and they are good at the product design and architecture service. So finally, we decided to select AWS and also select Sundersoft to get along with us on this digital transformation journey. So this is very important for us. And to be very honest with you guys, I strongly believe the journey of digital transformation is not smooth. I guess everyone has a headache. But I still believe, when we work with these two partners, I'm quite excited and confident that we will be able to move forward and to take one step at a time to make a progress, make improvement, and provide value to our customer. So it is long and tough, but I have quite confidence that we will win on this. So yeah, these are the things that I would like to share with you guys. But before any of my part, I would like to say something, okay? First of all, I would like to say thanks to my dearest daughter, Selena, who has been with me today and also providing support all the times. So I love you, Selena. And also, I would like to show my appreciation for the organizer here and to have the opportunity to speak here and working with you guys. So really a pleasure for me. And also, I also would like to say the golden opportunity who has brought me to this project to working in Chevron and also working with AWS and Microsoft. So these are my pleasure and honor as well. So I love you guys all. Thank you very much. Now I will switch to my dear friend, Craig.
Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you.
All right. So let's take a look and at some of the service modules. And I actually have a demo, so I'm going to be one of those people that tries to pull off a demo at reInvent to show you some of this and kind of what our partner Thundersoft have been building as well. So in Arthur's example, if I go back to the solution stack that I had at the beginning, you can see where they just picked the accelerators, the service modules that were most appropriate for their IoT use case, right? And again, these are components that are going to be deployed inside of your AWS account. So if you're a developer, let's take a look at how some of this is actually going to work. So let's just say we have a visual defects detection application, right? This is a little bit of what's inside of our demo as well. You can think of the application itself be sitting on top of the different service modules. So here we've got our solution template engine, which is where you get things started. We've got our user center for user management, AI, ML, device management. There are a lot of these different service modules, right? And I'm going to dig into a couple of them, and then we'll demo 2 of them as well. From an operator perspective, right, if we go back to the top, the end application is what the customer is ultimately after. This has everything you need for visual defect detection, but it also has a user interface that is important to the operator. An operator doesn't want to log into an AWS console to go and check the status of something. They don't want to have to log in to go and take actions on visual defects. They want that user interface that's suitable, right, has the appropriate human-machine interface for them to work with. And so that's something that's provided in these solutions as well, right? So you're not just getting an API, you're actually getting something that's suitable with that user experience. And then the builder components kind of sit underneath that, right? So the builder comes along and works with the different service modules, adds additional code, and then of course, you've got your administrators who can do what admins do. So from a kind of architecture standpoint, I wanted to go through a couple of those sections. I'm going to jump into the device management side since this is IoT, and let's take a look at how this actually works to deploy IoT devices as well. And I'll quickly touch on the IoT services, just in case we have people here who don't know what they are. I would also talk about them all day long, so I'll do a quick 30 seconds on the important ones. So at the edge, we've got our microcontrollers on our device gateways, right? Microcontrollers running FreeRTOS. We have our AWS IoT SDKs available on those. Those can, of course, connect securely to IoT Core and to Greengrass. Greengrass is our edge runtime, right? This is a Linux process that allows you to deploy applications to an edge device. You can orchestrate the running of containers as well. And it's really important for us to have a runtime such as Greengrass because you want to be able to execute compute or logic and intelligence at the edge. A lot of data stays on the edge. It doesn't need to go to the cloud. And there's also real-time data as well that we want to process. And that's where our machine learning is going to live, right? So we look at IoT. We're going to have our machine learning models. Greengrass is going to give us that environment to execute that and do it securely. And then we have IoT Core. So IoT Core is our massively scalable managed service, right? You can go from one device to tens of millions of devices. This is all managed by AWS for you. And then once data arrives in the cloud, using the rules engine, you can really send data to any service. And I'm going to start kind of back to the visual defect detection piece, right? If we go back to the top and we think of that operator coming in, how does the actual website get deployed now? And like, how do we host that? So again, this is following all of AWS's best practices, right? I'm sure many of you have hosted a website on our services before, right? These solutions and these accelerators take the same format in that websites are going to be stored inside of S3, or within S3, we've got CloudFront in front of that for caching and additional security. API calls are all going to go through the API gateway. There we can actually route to EKS. So you can see here we have an EKS cluster, and we also have a set of Lambda functions, right? So we can route incoming messages to that. And then we have another API below that, which is our provisioning API as well. So when devices come online and you're doing that initial bootstrapping, right? How do we get certs onto a device? All of those APIs are made available to you. They are, of course, through the API gateway again. So just like there's a lot of bits and pieces there, right, that I just mentioned. And normally when you're building these, you have to understand the intricate details of every single one of these services, and you have to write the code, right, to put all this together. So that has been historically how we've always done this and how we kind of talk about it. And what we bring into the table now is all the additional code to connect all these services for you. So you look up here, we've got additional container services and additional Lambda functions that enhance the existing services that we have, right? And so here we have more around device management, OTA, automation of what's happening with your devices in the field. For the real-time operations, things like certificate management, zero-touch provision of devices, like anything that's time sensitive is going to be handled by Lambda functions. Anything else that's long running, things like your dashboards and that also might be delivered from the container services. So this is just, and this comes all together as a service module, right? So you will get multiples of these, just depending again what your solution actually needs. And the next one I wanted to have a quick look at is just around AI ML. So not to go through all of that again, but as a service module now, when you take a look at this, it looks like a similar setup, except we are now, again, deploying additional functionality within your account. There's more Lambda functions, this time around a processing pipeline, right? So what do we need for AI ML is we need to get training data, we need to get it back to the cloud, we need to retrain our models, we need to get those delivered securely back down to the edge devices. And so if you take a look here, you'll see that we have additional containers at the top right that are helping us with training, with model evaluation, and we are integrating, of course, like I said, with all of the AWS native services. So when we do training, we're going to go and use SageMaker. If there's something that SageMaker doesn't support, then that's an additional functionality that may be added by a partner inside one of these containers. For all the real-time operations, again, we're looking at Lambda functions, and then, of course, integrated with IoT Core and with Greengrass, right? So Greengrass is getting trained models. The provisioning of Greengrass happens in that device management module that I showed earlier. And so it's bootstrapping Greengrass when you need to send an application down to Greengrass. That's all taken care of. And then when model synchronization has to happen, that comes from an S3 bucket, or it can actually come from an endpoint within SageMaker. So none of these additional pieces of functionality either are replacing any of the AWS services, right? It's all designed to work with the native services. So if you already work with the IoT services, if you use Device Defender, if you use device management, this is an enhancement to it, right? So when you get this and you're building an application on top of it, and you're familiar with those services, right? This will be very intuitive to work with and for you to enrich. So for customers, it's a great starting point. You'll see lots of solutions coming from our partners to tackle different vertical use cases. If you are a partner, you have access to this and some additional building blocks that I will talk about after the demo, which I think is the next slide. All right, let's take a look. Okay, let's switch this. Take a second. Okay, so, and this is a demo. This is something that our partner Thundersoft has been building on top of the service modules that we've been talking about. So I'm just going to go through this at a very high level so you can kind of see what's available. You'll notice, of course, it has a custom user interface. This user interface is under the covers is built on Cloudscape, right? Cloudscape is just one of our open source frameworks to give you an AWS sort of centric look and feel. It is one of the components that that come along. When we tell you that we're giving you service accelerators, service modules, right? These are the kind of components that you'll have access to and that you'll be able to build with. So let's take a quick look through what I have available here. So here I have my BDD solution. Within that, I have device models. And so before we provision a device, we define a model of that device. And a model is extending the functionality that IoT core itself knows about your device. So if I click on this, give that a second to load. We add additional attributes to devices, and we also add attributes that are considered functions. And if you look at command and control of devices, right? Can I switch a device on? Can I switch a device off? These are things along with the attributes of a device, like how much battery is left, or the status of, of an RGB light, for example. They can all be defined, and you do that within your module itself. So once you've defined functionality, like command and control functionality, you'll then be able to use that later on. And command and control for us on the IoT side is usually done through the shadow. So if you've worked with IoT Core before, you know we have the shadow service that has a desired and a reported state for devices, and then the service itself calculates a delta. And this allows us to send control messages to devices. If the device is offline, when it comes back online, it can see that it's missed that message. It can see there's a delta. It can then take action, right? And so you can define that functionality on the model for a device ahead of time, and then you can action on that later. So we can go ahead and we can actually define our device model. And I think a lot of this is kind of the user interface. Hopefully you would expect it kind of as you go through this. So once we have our device defined, and if I was to come in here, for example, and create a new one, I get a new device ID. This is used in the provisioning process. So, and that provisioning process, by the way, is very flexible. We're, building in different options for how you provision a device. You can have an image stamped on during manufacturing. Device IDs can be included at that time, and then they get mapped to a model so that the device knows how to come online. If that is an edge gateway, for example, Greengrass would be provisioned for you. Applications would then be deployed to that as well. So here I can come in and create a new device. If I click on an existing device that's there, it was easier for us to leave these offline, but if this device was online, I'd be able to actually see all the device attribute information in real time. And there's also additional debugging information, right? So it's much easier to see the data flowing to and from a device through this kind of interface. So as a developer, if you come in here, you can actually see a lot more about what's going on. You can see the real-time MQTT traffic to your device to help you debug in applications. And then you can see on the left-hand side, we're starting to tie together different pieces and different types of AWS services, right, into one user interface for this solution, right? So again, the builder just comes to one place to work on this application, and then we give a better operator experience as well. So we can have, we have extended functionality like device groups, rules, and then if I come over to container management, this is where we make it easier to push images down as well. So these are Docker images, right? If you want to run a container at the edge, you can come in here and actually define an image that will get deployed. And once you have that, you define your actual service application. Click on that over here. And here I can come in and actually specify the type of hardware that this is deployable to, the different supported architectures. I can pick a version that I actually want to push down to the device as well. And so again, I'm showing you sort of, if I did this through the building block approach, right, I'd have to go to a multitude of different services within AWS. I'd have to go to Greengrass to deploy one piece of it. I'd have to go to somewhere else to handle my container pieces. And so here in this user interface, and again, this is all customizable. So you can take this again. It's a great starting point for you if you are a partner and you want to build applications on top of this. And then let me show you the AI ML piece. So for this as well, it's combining AWS services and bringing those all into this user interface. So here I have a data set, so I can bring up a set of images, and I can work on classifying these images. And once I have that, I start building up my model library. And I can go into this. And I can actually see like debug information about my models. So if these models are always being retrained, I can actually come in and actually look at the training debug that comes from these. And I don't think I have any pre-trained models. Okay, so that's just a quick walkthrough kind of what Thundersoft have been working on with us so far. Now let me switch this back. All right, so we keep talking about solution modules and code and bits and pieces like that. Like how are you going to get this in the future, right? Whoops.
Yeah.
There's a back.
Okay.
Right, so we see this, this right now, as we test this and work through this with customers and partners, our vision here is that you have, as a partner, you would have a solution build kit. And this includes all of the common components that you need to actually build your solutions. So outside of just the IoT components, right, it's what about your user interface? What about common authentication, authorization, getting started templates? It's more than just what goes on the device, right? What about building mobile applications? What about mobile apps that help you with provisioning devices when they first come online? All of those initial components are going to be part of this build kit, as well as the service modules, the code examples that you've seen here as well. And then we have a concept of solution blueprints, which is when you're starting a solution development and you deploy this in an account, you don't necessarily want global scale, right? It could be expensive. You may just want to start small. You may have an operation or an industrial location where you just have one site, and so you deploy sort of a scaled down version of a solution. But then later on, you can bring a solution blueprint along and apply that where it deploys additional infrastructure for you, right? And we've done the work to sort of validate that additional infrastructure. And that could be that, hey, I want to go from one industrial site to 1,000 or 10,000. And there's additional CloudFormation templates and code available that help you deploy that or help you deploy in a global capacity as well. And so it changes the cost of your actual deployment. But again, these are some of the components that are going to be available through this solution mindset. There's also going to be more tooling around CI/CD. So actual developer tools, Cloud9 instances, the ability to develop in the cloud, deploy directly down to your device, like have that whole developer lifecycle actually defined for you. Again, this will all be made available. And then, tying into all of AWS's guidance and the well-architected framework to help you when these actually get deployed, right? So the idea here is, again, you deploy inside of your accounts, and the guidance is there to make sure that it's secure, reliable, scalable, and cost-effective. All right. Mazen.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. All right. Just to summarize, what our customers are asking us for, and what Craig has demonstrated, is essentially addressing these issues, addressing these pain points. How do we make it easier for you to build with AWS IoT? This modular approach is the way that we're proposing for you to address your next solution, to build your next solution. How do you reuse anything you built today with AWS? That is also part of what we're offering and we're working on. And then how do we give you something that will lower your time to market and cost? So the pre-packaging of predefined modules, predefined software modules, functionality that are pre-tested, pre-vetted. You probably heard Yasser talk about it this morning, the vetted solutions. That's what this is. Essentially, these modules are pre-tested, pre-validated to do a certain function, but then these modules have the ability to be configured for different scenarios and different verticals, if you wish, right? And then with the interface, the user interface that Craig demonstrated as well, you have that consistency. So when you build with one vertical, you build with multiple, and you have that consistency in the interface, user interface for these tools. So that is also something very important that we believe will reduce your friction in not just building with AWS IoT, but operating and growing your business with AWS IoT. With that, like I said, please take a scan of this QR code, and we would like to hear from you. We would like to hear from our partners. We'd like to hear what are your pain points and how can we help. So please take a minute to scan that. And then once you've done that, we have the survey for you to tell us how we've done, and we have 10 minutes of Q&A. You don't have to fill up the survey now. Afterwards, it's fine. Okay. So I think we have